I'm Patty McGarrahan, and this is the Mind's Eye Show. And today I have Maxine with me, and she's going to talk about a couple of different things. We're going to talk about some of her feng shui again, but first she's going to talk about this nonprofit organization that she works for, and she does fabulous things with. It's called Elves for Elders. And it's involved, right now she's going crazy, wrapping 9 million gifts so that all the elders that are in places and they don't have family supporting them, they get a Christmas present. So Maxine, thank you for coming. It's Maxine Hutchins. I skipped your last name.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I love having you. Thank you for coming. And why don't you start with talking about us with Elves with Elders.
Elves for Elders. So I started Elves for Elders 24 years ago. And my first year I did it from my home, and I did 300 seniors. And then after COVID, it grew last year to 4,300 and something. And this year we've hit 4,600. So I'm in the middle of it, and this Friday is our big wrapping event to try to get all the gifts gathered and assembled. And on Monday I had a crew help me haul gifts from Warwick Mall. I had a heating company and the Warwick Police came, and it was a great...
Because you did something illegal?
Yeah, no, they came to haul gifts, and they wore elf hats and everything.
Oh,
so if you
nice.
go on the mayor's page, I think you can see videos. So it was Coogan Heating and the Warwick Police, and they pitched in last minute for me to do this, so it was great.
Nice.
So we hauled a bunch of gifts from Warwick Mall, and we had some difficulties this year with our site that we normally assemble all the gifts at, and I had to get an emergency site, so there was a company that donated their space for that, so it's going well now.
Excellent, excellent.
Despite headaches. So it's mostly nursing homes across Rhode Island, but I also do some of the adult daycare center customers, and I do some of the senior centers will give me names for people.
Nice.
So it's geared towards the idea of doing it for people that might not get a gift.
And I was laughing because you were at the Mind's Eye one night, and you had mentioned one guy, all he wanted was stuff for his turtle.
Yes.
I thought,
yes.
aw.
Yes, I get pet owners sometimes, yes. So the idea started years ago when I was a social worker working in elderly housing, and I wanted to do something for my 200 residents, and I couldn't buy them gifts because I couldn't afford to do that. So I decided to hand make Christmas cards, and my friends thought I was crazy. Just go buy a box of cards because they're just going to throw them away after Christmas. And this one lady in my building in Cranston, she came up to me and she said, "Thank you so much for the card. It was the only one I got." And when she left my office, I kind of made that face a little bit and got a little teary-eyed, and I realized she was 82, she'd never married, she had no children, and all her friends were gone. So she could afford to buy herself a new sweater if she needed it, but no one thought of her at Christmas. They didn't even send her a card. So I knew she didn't get a gift. So that kind of gave me the idea, and then when I started working in healthcare marketing, I had the support that I knew I could do this program. And it's just grown unbelievably over the years, yes.
They do fundraisers for this program.
I do 3 fundraisers a year. I do what's called a quarter auction. It's a lot of fun. We do one in April, one in July, and one in October. And this year we raised $10,000 doing that. So what happens with the money, we have operating costs to print the stars and get all the materials we need to do it. And then at the end, there are stars that don't get taken. And then I have little elves that'll go out and shop for me. I just give them money and say, little elves.
Nice.
And I say, go shopping. Here
I got to
you go.
tell you, we went, my daughter and I went to her event, and it was an absolute blast.
Yeah.
It was absolutely.
That was the biggest attendance we'd ever had. We had over 100 people. It was amazing.
It was so cute because you had people dressed up in costumes.
Oh, because it was Halloween.
Oh, right.
It was right near Halloween, yeah. And I always dress up for Halloween. I love doing that, so yeah. And the other thing about the program, people don't realize that when someone goes into a nursing home, they only get to keep a very small amount of their check each month. It used to be $50 for years. This year it just got raised to $75, which is so much.
For a whole month, yeah.
For a whole month. So if they need anything, their haircut, they need a new pair of shoes, they need a new, new robe, anything, it has to come out of that money. So it doesn't go very far.
Right.
So that's why I do a lot of nursing
But I
homes
laughed
in
too
Rhode
because
Island.
besides the turtle food, when you were mentioning what some of the people ask for, it's very simple things.
Very simple things, but it's specific to the person. So it's not like doing a coat drive.
Yep.
They're asking for very specific things. And then, I'll have a star that'll say Mary wants slippers size 8 or John wants a robe size large. And someone picks the star maybe because of the name, because it was their father's name or their mother's name, or because of the gift request, because they identify with that. And then they purchase the gift and they bring it back to the location where they got the star. And I have hosts all over Rhode Island with trees everywhere.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's an awful. Can you imagine 4,600 people that would not have gotten gifts?
There's more than that. I mean, I'm not even touching. There's so many people in their homes that I don't even know about. I have to take a referral through a facility or an organization like a senior center, someplace that I know they're being vetted a little bit, and that's how I do it.
No, fabulous
Start
job.
in September getting all my lists of people. I feel like Santa Claus with the naughty list and the nice list. I get the list and then I get the stars done.
Excellent, excellent. I thank you for doing that. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Oh, it's a lot of fun.
My mother, you laugh because when my grandmother was in the nursing home, my mother was there all the time.
Yeah.
And this is back many, many years, so no judging. But my mother used to have them all whisper and ask her for things, and she'd feel bad for the ones that didn't have anybody that came in.
No.
But they had to talk to my mother because she was buying chocolates for the diabetics, and she was buying cigarettes for the
people that shouldn't be smoking.
Shouldn't be smoking. So they said it got around very quickly that my mother would do whatever they wanted.
She was an easy touch, right?
Easy touch, yeah.
Yeah.
So we laughed because my mother, every time she went up there, she had to stop and shop and get everything and pass it out because it bothered her.
A lot of people don't have anyone, or if they do have family, the family might not be very involved.
Or live out of state.
Or live out of
like
state,
that,
things like that. Yes. So.
Yeah. So we thank you so much for doing that.
Oh, thank you. I have a whole team. It's not just me.
Oh, I know. I met
lots of elves.
I met some of your team. They were the 7 dwarfs, I think.
Yes, they were the 7 dwarfs for Halloween.
Costumes.
Yes.
It was so funny when they went and had the picture taken and everything. My daughter and I laughed and had such a good time that night.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Yes.
In fact, she was asking when the next one was.
The next one's in April.
Okay. Yes.
April, July, and October we do them.
Right.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Try to space them out a little bit,
Yep. So in the meantime, we'll also talk a little bit about Maxine. Besides doing the Elves for Elders, which is her giving thing, she also teaches some classes, and it's very intriguing what she does with the Feng Shui. And last time she came on the show, we talked a lot about the Feng Shui and the divining rod. But this time you're doing some specific classes.
Yes, so I thought
kind of
this
exciting.
time I would do some more specific classes. So in January, I'm going to do one on decluttering, and not just about having clutter, but what clutter does to you in your whole life. So it'll be helping people understand why the clutter is an issue.
Well, I got to tell you something. I had gone a lot of years, and a lot of my husband that's passed stuff was down in the basement. Now, prior to him closing his company and one of my daughters moved in, I used to have 3 suitcases, Christmas ornaments, and then a few paint cans and stuff, and a lawnmower. That's all I ever had in my basement.
And then
you know
all
what I mean?
of a sudden.
Then all of a sudden my daughter moved in for a while, and she moved out of a 4-bedroom house to move in because she had some health issues with my grandson, and so all her crap went in there. So my husband thought it would be wonderful to hide his stuff that I normally threw out behind it, but a lot of his was metal stuff.
Excuse me,
so I couldn't get the 50, 75 pound cans out and everything. my nephew came over and helped my grandson and I do it, and I got to tell you something. Everything felt so much
lighter
when
right?
that was there.
Lighter.
So my cellar, as soon as one of the daughters found out that I cleaned it,
they brought stuff.
I brought some stuff, but it's still, I got this one section like that's full, and then under the staircase, and I have this wooden thing that holds the suitcases.
Yeah.
And other than that, I've got it empty again.
Yeah.
And it made a huge difference.
And it's also keeping it organized, and depending on where it falls in the space, what energy level that is, if it's in your money section and it's blocking that, or if it's in family and it's affecting relationships. There's all different ways it can affect you. We all have stuff. It's how we put our stuff around that makes a difference.
Absolutely. And I've even found like a few times when I feel I'm stuck, all of a sudden I go, oops, time to clean up my closet.
Yes.
And bring it, to one of those bins, where they...
Yes. A lot of people like to just open the closet and shove the stuff in and think it doesn't affect them.
I do.
Because they don't see it, and it affects you just as much.
My house can have no clutter. Like if you walk to my front door, you'd go, wow, it's like wide open spaces. Or some of it is because I have over 200 pounds of dogs that are like boom, 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 so it's easier. But if you walk in my door, you see all this openness that is really fantastic. But it used to be the cellar and the closets were like a horror show.
Yes.
And I'm doing better. I'm getting there.
Animals help, cats and dogs, cats especially, because they go through your space and they kind of bring the energy with them, as long as they can go through the space, if it's not too cluttered. Yeah.
Well, my dogs run through the space, so
They
you're better
run
off
through the
not
space.
having it cluttered.
Yes, and then in February, I'm going to do a workshop on relationships.
Yes.
That's specific
I've got
to
a lot of people excited
relationships.
about
I
that.
bet they are. So different things that you can do that people don't think of. When I say to someone, they say they want a relationship, and I'll say to them, okay, if I go into your bedroom right now, is there this much space in your closet for someone to hang something? And they'll be like, oh no. And I'll say, is there a drawer that has like this much space in it for someone to put something? Oh no. Then you're saying you don't really want a relationship, because you're not making room in your life for that.
Right.
I mean, that's real simple, saying the one
But
thing.
I really think that decluttering could help other relationships
It does too.
Relationships with your children, relationships with family members, because
it does. Depending on where the clutter is, it's blocking those areas.
Absolutely, because when you have like the heads of the family pass, the families go crazy, and it's beautiful to know how to do some of that stuff.
Yes.
It goes crazy.
It is.
And I do know, I know somebody this person named Chris that really needs to go to that class.
I think I might know who you're talking about.
So, and then in March, we haven't announced it and I haven't put it up yet, but in March you're going to be doing to bring in the money.
Yes. I'll do a specific one on money, because March and the lucky pot of gold kind of thing. We'll talk about how you can attract money and how you can declutter for the money and things like that. More specific.
Maxine did a class at my shop. And I got to tell you something. I've taken classes on Feng Shui and dividing rods and stuff like that, but that presentation was absolutely fabulous. She actually showed a picture of her own house and like where the items.
Yeah, I like to draw out the rooms and how clutter affects certain areas. And I call that the basic, like 101 feng shui. It's just so give a general understanding, and then that's a good stepping point to then go into specific classes. And even when I do the specific classes, I'll go over a little bit of that for someone who maybe didn't take that. Just
because
so
it does make a.
And you need to hear it again.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And my house is not perfect. I don't want people to think, oh, this is the lady who's all organized, and I'm organized in certain areas, but it's something I have to work on all the time and think about.
Yes, yes. And I even know that like when I have had clutter in my house, like when one of the kids moved back with the kids, you know what I mean? And craziness, even if it's very short term.
It affects you.
It affects me. And
health-wise, mentally.
Health-wise,
yeah. It affects your energy.
And it was just, as soon as it clears up, it's like, woo-woo.
But then you have to make one of the mistakes that people make is they'll clear a space and then you go back maybe 2 months later, and that same space is now occupied with other things. When you clear a space, you have to now make an intention for that space so that you're not going to do that same thing again.
Absolutely, absolutely. And but I some of that stuff, as I said, I knew the basics, and I've carried on doing it for years.
Right.
And it has helped. But I found when you gave some of the information, it's your thing.
It's my jam, yeah.
And I've played with the divining rod, but I've never really used it.
It's the same thing. It's very similar to a pendulum. It's doing the same thing. You're just picking up on energy and how the energy is being blocked or moving. So it's just the dowsing rods give such a great visual.
It's so fun, yeah.
It gives a great visual. It always impresses people, and you know, you don't really do anything.
Because I do
it's just energy.
I even use a pendulum in some of the psychic detective work, trying to find stuff.
Sure.
But the dividing rod is very fun.
Very cool.
And when I took
a lot of people don't have them either. I've had that pair for years, though.
Yeah.
You know,
I took a shaman apprenticeship program, and we worked with the divining rod, and I was like, wow.
I had a grandfather who used to do it with a branch, and that's how he would find a new well. He would take the branch off the tree.
Wow.
He would, and you take the branch, it's got to be the right branch, and then you twist it around so it's taut, and you walk along the ground, and you can find water that way.
Oh, wow.
Because water is just energy.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and he knew how to do that, so
you got brought up with
it comes naturally, some of the stuff,
yes. Oh, that is absolutely fantastic. So, we're on Facebook, on the Mind's Eye Facebook page, we'll have some of the classes and stuff like that, because her classes are a lot of fun, and it's she finds a different way to.
I want it to be fun.
Yeah. Plus, some of the ways that you do things, it makes it so the information stays in your head.
Right. You just can't stand there and recite stuff. You've got to get people involved, and you've got to, I like to pick people to pick a room of their choosing to do, and then that way it makes more sense for them because it's their own space. So now they can understand it and apply it a little bit better.
Right. I found that worked really, really well, and it just did. One of the things that I did love about the last one too, kind of just briefly tell about what got you into this. About your crazy daughter that's in the back room helping us on the TV.
You mean my crazy daughter that's so organized?
Yes.
She wasn't always.
No.
Not as a child, but then all of a sudden there was this big shift, and she became very organized.
Right.
Yeah, much more than me. Yes.
Yes. And she also too, some of her own psychic abilities and everything made you look into a lot of different things.
Yes. I started looking into stuff because I had insomnia. And I couldn't sleep, and so I started.
So what I said, you reels
meditation.
At 2 o'clock in the morning. That's not a problem.
No, I'm usually up, and even now till maybe 2 o'clock. But I used to have a terrible time sleeping, and so I took a meditation class, and then that led to another class, and the one that really stuck with me, though, was the feng shui. It's the one that it just fits.
Well, you could tell when you're teaching it that it comes from your soul.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean? And it's so nice that you put together what you and your father, what you enjoyed about what your father did.
My grandfather, yes.
And kind of put that into perspective with it.
And I think my grandmother had a lot of psychic ability. They didn't refer to it that way then, but
No, I have
she
to laugh.
did.
The people that their grandmothers and stuff that did certain things, and then all of a sudden after they passed, they found hidden cards and
they were healers. I wish
stuff.
that I was more enlightened when I lived with my grandmother, and I could have learned more stuff if I had known. But I was younger then, and
a lot of them kept it very secretive. So they
did.
They had that two friends that knew about it, or a small group of friends that knew about it. I had a friend that was a priest. And his grandmother died. Everything was very Catholic, and even the grandmother acted very Catholic. They found cards and ruins and found out she had 2-3 friends, and they used to pate with that stuff. So it was.
I think that's what helped my daughter with her abilities, because when she was growing up, I had started study and stuff, and I was a little more developed and in understanding of that. So I think that made it easier for her to
be open to it.
To be open and to work with that.
I was so fortunate because my parents were not into it, but my father and my mother, both of them, my father was more boisterous about it, but my mother was like, my brother had the imaginary friend, so he wanted a place setting at the restaurants and at home, so there was a place setting put up for the imaginary friend.
Now we know they weren't imaginary,
yes,
right?
And it was so funny, and he outgrew the imaginary friend, so one day my mother and father kept asking, is Holly here, your imaginary friend, and blah, 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 and he turned around and said, he didn't want to be here anymore, so I threw him out the window. So he was just hitting that 10, 11, 12-ish, do you know what I mean? And
yes.
He didn't like that he had, the imaginary friend.
That's when we're told it's not real and we finally believe it, so we get rid of it.
But my parents, I'm so grateful. I didn't realize it at the time, but I'm so grateful that they did not block anything on me. Did they think I was crazy sometimes? Absolutely.
Probably.
5 years old, up in New Hampshire. Let's go down. Daddy, can you go down that road? Why, honey? Because they got a cow on the roof, and you can make your own sundaes. Ice cream even back then, You can make your own sundaes. And now my mother and father look at each other, and they're going to check out to see if there's a cow on the roof.
Really a cow on the roof?
And sure enough, there is,
There was a cow.
So they were so cool about it, though.
Yeah,
they were
that's
so
good.
cool. I remember certain eye contacts that made me realize that
it wasn't everyone's thing.
Well, somewhat, but it wasn't until junior high school when I made an announcement and my good friends looked at me like, what are you talking about? Like I had 3 heads and a tail. That was the first time I realized, because my parents were so easygoing about it.
Right, you thought everyone
I thought
should be.
everybody just did what we did, we do. So anyway, and then your daughter came out with a few things that made you realize that there was more to it too.
Oh yeah, she did. Like I thought her imaginary friend was just an imaginary friend. And then I remember I was at a friend's house and her little girl was playing with Barbies and my daughter was entertaining her with the Barbies, and she was in her 20s now. And when we left, she goes, oh, I remember my imaginary friend. And I'm like, what? You remember your imaginary friend? Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's so funny. I had to laugh one day. My daughter was at an old house on Oakland Avenue. That it was an old mansion that got broke up into apartments type of thing. And she had us over for Thanksgiving dinner. She cooked, and all the grandkids and step-grandkids and whatever else, my daughter was the one that invited like everybody that didn't have a place to go to dinner, so you had 9 million people there. All of a sudden my husband goes, isn't that cute? The kids are playing that they're chasing a ghost. And I burst out laughing and I said, it's a real ghost.
It's a real
Joe.
ghost and they're chasing
And he
you.
looked at me and he goes, what? I said, there's 2 or 3 of them that are just following the pact, but most of them are seeing a ghost. There's a ghost in here. That now that I know it's here, we will have to remove it before we leave. But no, they're chasing the ghost around the house. Yeah. And he just looked at me, and it's so funny because my husband had some psychic abilities, but he didn't realize it and he didn't like to acknowledge it.
Right.
So he had in his phone, Whack Job is my name on the phone. So that's his friends. My Whack Job wife.
I never got called that.
That had it, that's coming through. Now, besides the Feng Shui, I'm going to start bugging you for some other classes too. Do you?
Okay.
So, as the time goes on in the fall, know, so I'll probably say, what are you doing in April? What are you doing in May?
Okay.
So what are some other things? Because I know you've been involved in this for so many years and at so many different places and stuff like that.
Yes.
That I put you on the spot.
You did. I mean, I really think Feng Shui is my thing. I've studied other stuff. I've done some mediumship. I've done the tarot and stuff like that. But I really think that's what I excel at.
That's your bag.
Yeah. I think it brings. When you put it all, they're all like pieces of a puzzle. And when you study all the different things, they all are just energy work. That's all it is. You're reading energy. No matter what way you do it, if you're doing palms, if you're doing cards, you're reading energy.
Absolutely.
It's just
connecting. It's so funny because sometimes I have somebody that I work with that has me bring out the pendulum or something like that. Normally I don't use it because I can picture the pendulum and it will tell me the answer without me even having to take the pendulum out.
I just
know what I
like
mean?
playing with the pendulums.
like-
I love
yeah.
the way they, depending
And I
on,
have, like,
I get
20 of them.
attracted. I probably have about 6. That's not too bad.
No.
I probably have that many decks of cards too, but
I have
it's
about 40.
it's when you
decks of
when
cards.
you hold one and you know it's the right one for you because it just flies and you don't have to do anything but just hold it.
Yeah.
I love that.
Do you know what I had to laugh at? I had kind of like, just kind of like put it aside and wasn't using it. And we went to do a thing where we were trying to find on a psychic detective class where a body was buried. And we had a map out. And somebody said, let's do the pendulum. We ended up finding where the body was.
You did.
Do you know what I mean? In fact, they found 2 bodies. There was another one there. But it was like so cool because it was like the pendulum worked, and now it got me back into it a little bit because I kind of tended to use them as decorations, like got them all over my altar in my house and everywhere, but I stopped using them, and it got me to stimulated to use them again. Because I never thought to use it
forget
on a
about
map.
things, yeah. I had someone call me one time, a realtor, because she was supposed to sell a house and the closing was the next day. And this woman said, well, I'm not buying the house unless I have it feng shuied. So she knew I did that, so she called me. But of course,
Can you imagine the day before
the day
closing
before.
doing
But
that,
I was at
Melissa?
work and I didn't have my rods or anything with me, so I went there, and the woman had a necklace on, and I used her necklace to do the
I love
house.
that. Oh my God,
and
that's
she bought the
fabulous.
house. And she bought the house. It
That
was
is
just using
fabulous.
her necklace to do the house. The other fun one I did one time was a business. That was a manufacturing company in West Warwick.
Oh, wow.
And the woman knew I did it because she worked in elder care, so we had just talked about it one time. And she actually hired me to come and assess her whole business, the factory. So I did each area of the factory, each workspace, and she took notes the whole time. She made all the changes that I suggested. They got a huge contract in China for work.
Excellent.
And she had me go in a second time. Yeah.
Excellent. So we're close to the end of this, so you can either get a hold of Maxine Hutchins on Facebook,
Yes.
or if you can't, give me a call, and I'll definitely connect you with her.
Yes.
And thank you so much for coming to play with me
Oh,
today.
thank you for having me.
Yes,
I
loved
always
it.
have a good time.
I always do too. So
Thank you.
we could get into some trouble together.
We could. We could get into lots of trouble together.
So thank you so much for coming, and
Thank you.
I'm sure I'll have you coming back, and I'm so looking forward to your classes.
Me too.
Yes,
They'll be
I
fun.
can't wait. Excellent.
Thank you.